Welcome back to the Firewood Addicts podcast series, season 2. My second interview. You're going to love it. Everyone, welcome our new friend, Bob. Bob, say hi.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Rock and roll. We're good. You all recognize Bob from Wolfe Ridge, other channels, his own channel. Hopefully, this will be a very interesting interview with Mr. Bob Nelson. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes. Bob, you may have said this before on various outlets or channels. Can I get a background of how you got started, maybe into chainsaws, maybe into firewood,
Sure.
or how you got started in interest in this industry? I'm curious.
Sure. So, it dates back probably before we could start way back in the mid 2000s, probably. Starting with small engines, starting with lawn boy mowers, the 2-cycle mowers. I had one that I had for probably 20. Was in the family for 20 years. It blew up, and then instead of buying a brand new lawnmower, we went and fixed it. So that opened up kind of a can of worms, and we ended up starting to basically rebuild and repair and resell all these old lawn boy 2-cycle mowers. And that eventually turned into a business that my father wanted to start. So I started it with him in the city we live in Merrill. And we started basically selling small engine service, but then also selling new stuff. So we started selling Toro lawn and garden equipment, and then also John's Red chainsaws. So the John's Red chainsaws is what really got me started into like sawing and firewood style of things, right? And as that business grew, we got more and more brands. So I got familiarized with, I mean, back then when we first started that, a chainsaw was a chainsaw, right? I didn't know what was what, any of that. So it was kind of crash course figuring out, okay, John's Red at the time maybe had 10 or 11 models. And, I'm thinking, all right, here's the $200 chainsaw. And that's all that exists to me, right? But then it was 2172s and $700 or $800 chainsaw. And at the time, again, I'm new to all this, so I'm like, man, who's buying $800 chainsaw? Fast forward, we ended up taking on Husqvarna as a line as well, and the Johnsford was basically it was owned by Husqvarna, and they basically were red Husqvarnas with a straight handle instead of the 7-degree angle. So there was a lot of similarities when we got into Husqvarna. And then years past that, we got into steel as well. So Johnsford kind of got phased out there. They ended up going to like Tractor Supply and these other big box stores. And I don't even know if they exist anymore or not. Husqvarna has a partnership where they bought Red Max or something like that. So then the Red Max saws were the Johnsford saws. It's interesting if you saw a Red Max and you're like, dude, this is a Johnsford with a Red Max label on it. But anyway, then at that time in that business, I had sold out my shares. There wasn't enough work to keep my dad and I both busy. I went and worked at a automotive repair at a Chevy dealership, working on RVs and then working more on the cars and tech side. And I worked there for 3 years. And then the guy that bought out my shares from that power equipment business actually started up a new company called Metza Machines. And he reached out to have me be the general manager for that. So then basically we imported the Yappa firewood processors. We did awesome with those processors here in the United States, and I still love those machines. We brought in a couple other lines. We had the Ramy ATV accessories, and those did really well. And both of those companies were awesome to work with. But there were some internal issues that basically I had to make a change. So, and it had nothing to do with Yappa or Ramy. So I'll be clear that I still love those brands and those guys. I mean, they were awesome guys to work with. We were growing that market share in the United States really well. So last year and this is actually probably this is probably the most in-depth I've gotten with this story as time has gone on. So just so you know, I've been asked, some of the stuff, but this is a pretty in-depth. So basically, I gave my notice at my last job in August of last year, and I agreed to work out the trade shows. And so I did that. I made an announcement sometime maybe mid-September or something like that, saying, hey, I'm going to be at the Paul Bunyan show. This is going to be my last show working for that company. if anybody wants to stop by, say hi. We're going to make a ton of firewood. And we did. And I'll tell you, when I gave my notice, I did not have a plan. So um, it was a very scary thing to do, but I had to make a change. And so what I did was I gave my notice, and then you know, basically I was kind of open to anything. But when I went to the Paul Bunyan show, I mean, and that this community of, if you want to just say woodhounds, or you want to say people that are interested in this industry and firewood, it's an amazing group of people, right? So I had a lot of relationships with these people, whether it be YouTube channels, whether it be customers, whether it be other vendors, other manufacturers. I mean, like, it's a pretty tight knit community, and there's a lot of great people, right? So I went to the Paul Bunyan show. This would be in 2023, and as I said, didn't have a plan. I went on. When I was exiting there, I still put my best foot forward, and gave my all, right, to do the best I could. And at the Paul Bunyan show, there was just so much like support for me as an individual, that I was like I got to stay in this industry, right? Like, and I had a job offer external from this industry, completely, and I had thought about it. But then at the Paul Bunyan show, that's when Chris from Wolfe Ridge approached me, and he said, "Hey, I want to, I want to hire you." And I said, "To do what?" And he was like, "Anything." I'm like, "Okay." So it's kind of, and I've known Chris so Chris started Wolfe Ridge in 2015, and 2016 is when I had started at Metza. So we ended up meeting through a mutual dealer, I think in 2017, and then we ended up working at trade shows next to each other or whatever. And if one of us needed a hand from the other, we kind of, and that's part of that tight knit community thing, right? Like, so, but I got to watch him grow his business, just keep growing, and I was kind of stifled in some ways, with where I was. And so yeah, when he approached me at Paul Bunyan, and said, "Hey, I want you to work for me," we were just joking around, whatever. But then later that evening, I was driving home, and in 2023 I worked the last day of Paul Bunyan, the setup day of Paul Bunyan I did myself, and the takedown day at Paul Bunyan I did myself. And that is not a good place to be in. Like, it's working one of those shows singular, especially with a good product line, like, you're busy, it is massive stress. So anyway, I took down the show, and then I get a text from Chris on the way home, and he says, "Hey, I'm serious." And I said, "Okay, like, let's talk." But I said, I'm going to take a little bit of time for myself first, and I did. So basically in October, I think it was right about now, was my last day at Metza. And then basically I had some time off, right? So I was kind of, all these projects that weren't done around the house, and things that I just hadn't been able to get to, I was basically just going hard getting all those done, because I had been working a lot of stuff by myself at the last job, and doing shows by myself. And I had a few great employees, but we needed more resources than we had, right? So anyway, Chris is messaging me again saying, "Hey, when do you want to get together?" So we got together sometime in November, and had a good meeting. I met the guys at the factory, and I'll tell you, like, the thing is, when I went over there for my meeting with Chris, talked to him, right, and I walk around the factory, and I recognize a few guys because I'd seen them at shows, but there's 25 people that work over there, so it's a little intimidating, because I'm walking through here and I'm like, okay, I don't know anybody, But then there's a couple of guys that, personally, like, approach me, and they're like, "Hey, man, it's nice to see you here. Hope you can work something out with Chris," and the engineer, like, I remember that Kevin was on the forklift, and he's like saying the same thing. And Ben is the sales guy there. So if you call to place orders and stuff like that, Ben's the guy you talk to. And Ben, same thing, was like welcoming, to me. And I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I started working there on December 2nd last year. The first thing I did, I remember, was a YouTube short with the 17 VS. And it was awesome, because like all these comments were like, what the heck, like, yeah, surprise, right? Um, but I do want to point out that, like, I did not have a plan, and nobody had approached me in the time that I was at the last place because everybody thought I was the owner. So,
Ah,
they're like, well, why are we going to ask him to do anything? He owns it and he's, doing well with it. Um, so yeah, it's been almost a year now with Wolfe Ridge, and man, it's been awesome. I've loved it so far. So that was
right
sorry, there's
on.
a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking. I'm
Totally fine. Well, thank you for the in-depth answer,
yeah,
and
very in depth.
being candid. I appreciate that, and to understand the progression, which is awesome. How this kind of things kind of like fell into place in
Yeah,
each step of the way. Yes,
right.
there's hesitation. There's some nerves or some,
Absolutely.
like I'm worried, but it all worked out, and I hope that continues for you.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, when I interviewed Andrew Easton
Yeah,
and I asked him about when you're at trade shows, or is there like competitiveness, or do you like
yeah,
butt heads, or is it like help each other? And he said that it's a very tight knit community.
yep,
We're actually friends. We're not. I mean, we're by definition you are competitors, but it
right.
doesn't seem like that because you're all trying to do the same thing, and you pretty much said the same thing where you. I mean, you're together a lot. I mean, in
Yeah,
proximity,
yeah,
and there's no need to like have friction,
right.
and people will buy what they're gonna buy, and it is what it is. And it's
Yep,
cool that you have. I think it's in the industry, and then the woodhounds on YouTube and the woodhounds in general. Like when I was traveling to Vermont to help out my mother-in-law to cut down firewood, I had people ready, like on call, ready to help me. And
yeah,
I have never met them before in my life, but they were in the chainsaws, in the
yep,
firewood, ready to rock and roll. It didn't happen by it's not their fault, but just that camaraderie and understanding that like, hey, like you need help, I'm there. I'm rock and roll.
yep,
Like I'm there to help you. So
yeah,
that's really cool to
yeah.
be a
You'll
part of that community, right?
Yeah, and you'll often see like at these shows. I think, let's see, it was at Joe's event down in Ohio, the international, Firewood Expo.
Hmm.
We were both there, and so we're talking about stuff, and it ended up being like, at one point, I think they moved one of our machines, and I moved one of their machines, and it's just the way it goes. Like I'm in the skid steer, they're in the skid steer, whatever. I think Andrew put a splitter on a trailer for us at the Green Bay show. It's basically like, yeah, if something happens or somebody really needs it, yeah, the other guys will help, right? It's the same. Yes, there's competitiveness, of course, right?
Hmm.
But that ends up making a better product for the end user, right? We've got everybody in this industry building stuff is striving to build the best and to be better every day. And it's fun. And at the end of the day, the person that benefits is the customer, right? Now
Hmm.
there is people that do want to poke the bear on social media. They want to go, let's say there's somebody that's really into our product or really into the other guy's product, and then they decide to poke at each other. It's like, come on, but that's part of the deal. That's the way it goes. And
Hmm.
a lot of it's at the end of the day for us as like the manufacturers, and that we have fun with it. So um it's all good.
I think it's an industry that, yes, there's. I mean, it's a business, and you make money whether you're
Sure.
making processors, splitters, or to sell firewood. Yes, money and being serious about it, but I think there's something about firewood as a whole in the industry that you have to have fun.
Yeah.
There's an aspect of humor to it, and with the camaraderie too, that I don't know, something about firewood brings about joy, and to be serious is not all the time, not it's not a part of it. I feel that people either on YouTube or at shows, I mean, I'm probably what I see, and people who I interact with firewood, there's humor that goes along with it,
Yeah.
and happiness. I don't know what word I want to use now, but as or it's not like it's all strictly business, all seriousness, all
Oh,
straight
right.
face type thing.
Yeah.
There's fun with it too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's fun. There's fun with the customers, and there's fun between manufacturers too, right? We can,
Uh-huh.
we can razz each other at the shows and still have fun with it. You know what I mean? That's all part of it. But at the end of the day, all of us are basically doing the same thing, right? We're building equipment, we're enjoying our jobs, we're feeding our families, and there's there's plenty to go around, right? I think like if you look at, let's just say like there's always been the big, Chevy, Ford, Ram, right? Like those three, and everybody's kind of like messing with each other. Oh, you got that? Oh, that's junk, or vice versa. And that's just part of the game, right? Like I think you're gonna have end users that are super passionate about stuff. Um, and that's good, right? Like it's good to get what you want and be proud of it.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. On that note, based on your experience with small gas engines,
Yeah.
are you are you for one brand of chainsaw the next, or does it matter to you, or are you gung
Well,
ho on one or the other?
so I was probably more so, being that I had, my start with the saws was basically Johnsford, right? And
Hmm.
then the Husqvarnas came in. And back then, when we first started selling the Husqvarnas, there was the 346 XP and the 357 XP. And I loved those saws. And in fact, we had the 455 Rancher. I remember this. The 455 Rancher was $399 at the time, came with a 20-inch bar, 55cc saw, great firewood saw, a lot of power, but it was heavy and it's made of plastic, right?
Mm.
And 346 XP was maybe, I may be misspeaking, someone can correct me, but I think it's like a pound lighter. Um, Horsepower was pretty close to the same, and it was $40 more. We had a lot of
Mm.
people that were like skeptical of buying that saw instead of the 455, but basically our our ratio used to be 455s, a ton of them, 346, not as many, and it ended up being 346, a ton of them, and 455, not as many, because that 346 was so light, magnesium crankcase, all that stuff. So I was always then more excited about Husqvarna just in general. And then 562s came out, 550 XPs came out. XPG, I love having a heated handle. It sounds, some people listening are going to be like, why do you need a heated handle? Dude, in Wisconsin, it's awesome. Your hands are wet, you use the saw, your hands are steaming. It's just like, and same thing with heated handles on a snowblower. The annoyance is that Steel makes heated handles, but they don't sell them in the US. And it's like,
Oh.
I think you can get them in the Canadian market yet. Um, so anyway, we sold the Steels, and I have no issue with the Steels, but I just wasn't as into them until um, it would have been the day after my last day at the last job. I went to an event at Back 40 Firewood, and Dan had his 500i there. And of course, everybody, it's this big hype about the 500i. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, I need to put my hands on this and run it. And so I did. And then I bought one because I
And
was
then I
just,
bought one.
dude, I was just blown away. He had some big logs there, and he's like, okay, when you get on it, it's gonna yank into the log. And I'm like, okay. And I caught, and I'm just like, holy crap, like this is awesome. So yeah, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I ended up, no, it might have been a month later, but anyway, I bought one, and
Hmm.
I have it, and I really like it, but I don't use it as much as I use like my 550 XPG. I have an older 550 XPG that's got the heated handles, and that saw I still use for a ton of stuff because it's lightweight. I can grab it and do stuff that's like this. There's no sense getting the 500i out for that. So
Hmm.
um, I would say maybe I'm still biased towards the Husqvarna, but I love the 500i. I'm maybe biased towards the older Husqvarnas because even though 550 is still a current model, I know there's Mark One and Mark Two. Mine are the Mark One. So, um, but I have a sweet spot for the smaller saws, which is, I like to do a lot of stuff with the smaller saw. That like the more I can get done with the smaller one, the better. And I've
Hmm.
maybe that's how I was, or I'm like that because of the processor stuff too. I don't know. I used to sell the smaller processors, and we always tried to do as much as we could with those machines. So
Hmm. I think there's a lot to be said with more CCs but a heavier saw,
yeah,
less CCs and lighter, and lugging around a big saw, even for an hour or two, that can wear on you.
yeah,
Whereas if you have a smaller log, and yes, you want to stand up and buck, but if you're just wanting to get a few cuts in, bring out the smaller saw
yeah,
and save your
exactly.
body. You
Right.
know.
exactly.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Is there so obviously you would probably still work on your own saws, but
Yeah.
is there a local dealer near you that you would favor a saw based on brand that you like, or is that not a factor for you at all?
Um, at this point, that's not a factor, but I would say for most people, I think that is an important factor. If you like both of them, then you need to go with the dealer that actually, provides for the customers, that keeps parts on the shelves and all that stuff, because that is a big part of the user experience, right? If you take a saw
Hmm.
in for service and they don't even look at it for 3 weeks, because they didn't order the parts or something like that, versus you take it in for service at the last place and they have parts on the shelf, you get it back 2 days later. I mean, that's a huge difference, especially maybe not so much for somebody like me. I'm not doing a ton of firewood, but like for somebody that's making firewood every day, like it's a big deal. So, the service after the sale, as with anything, is huge. So that's what I would say. If you like the steel and you like the Husqvarna, pick the dealer that's got the better service reputation and that's easier to work with.
I agree. I think that's a trend, either that and or the trend that when I ask that question is it's whatever dealer's closer to me that I would choose that brand of saw. But
Yeah.
I was asking at the PNW fellowship that happened if it happened a few weeks Saturdays did a few Saturdays ago. I asked Brendan this question, and he said that he has a local dealer near him, but they're not friendly. They're not nice. They don't have parts on the shelves, whatever. He said that
Yeah.
he, in general, he doesn't like going there. So he'll
Yeah.
spend the extra, I think it was like a half an hour drive
Yep.
outside. And I think that was another brand, I believe. I think Steel brand. I think. I
Okay.
could be wrong. Sorry, Brennan. Um, but that shop, they know what they're doing and they're friendlier. They have parts. He
Yeah.
likes the experience better, so he wants to give them his business, and it's worth his time to travel there than
Yeah.
his local
Absolutely.
shop because he doesn't like them. So I think that's
Hmm.
it's a huge experience. I think for a lot of us too. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned I want to follow up with this. You obviously you are a very busy guy, which was totally fine. Are you doing any firewood at all for yourself? Do you heat with
Yeah.
firewood? Do you buck a lot with your
Yeah.
chainsaws? Okay.
So, right now, I haven't been bucking a lot with my saws. We did, in my personal YouTube channel, I didn't, basically, I got so busy with work stuff and family stuff that I ended up kind of pausing that. But I am going to come back and do more with it. We did set up a roadside stand at a friend's business, and that's been doing okay. It's maybe, at this point, I think we set it up in July. It's been very hot. We're averaging maybe 150 or 200 a month. It's not $200 a month. It's not that crazy. But I did just get another stand actually from Brandon at Whiskey River. He built one for me. So
Okay.
I asked him how much it would cost, and he charged me $300. I'm like, I don't want to build it for that. So I bought it from him, and then yeah, actually last week I was up at his place running a splitter, so it worked well where I could bring that home. It's still in the back of my truck. We got to go set it up this week, but uh, but I have the Wolfe Ridge Firewood bagging station. I actually bought some firewood that was already split, and then I resplit it to get to the sizes that I wanted, so that I could get these stands rolling because I don't have any bulk built up for myself. I do have a logger that will bring stuff to my land, but our land, we're going to notch out kind of a section of this pine plantation, and that's where we're going to set up our cutting and splitting operation. So at this point, I have not been actually bucking and splitting much at all. Last year, when I was doing when I first started at Wolf Ridge, I was doing all of the walk around videos and things like that. So then I was bucking every week, and I'd bring my 550 and my 500i to work. So depending on what log I was cutting up, that would depend on which saw I was using. Plus, it's always good to have two saws with you in case one decides to.
Mm-hmm.
I did
Mm-hmm.
actually the 550 XP. It might have been one of the videos I was doing in February. The nose froze up on it, so then the rest of the day was with the 500i because I didn't have an extra bar with me.
Mm, okay.
Um, but yeah, that is something that I want to do more of. And here we've got good access to pulp logs. I don't know what they would call it out by you, but it's basically 8 to 12 or 14-inch diameter logs. everything's cut to 100 inches, and you can buy a cord. Well, if you buy a truckload at a time, which would be 12 to 13 cords, you can usually get it for about $100 a cord. So a whole semi, you know, so that's like 12 or $1,300, and buy it for 100. Usually you can sell it for 250 or 300. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, but that's enjoyable to me. The being outside, cutting, splitting. At the end of the day, you're tired. You can go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like it's a rewarding thing. Um, yeah.
And therapy, I would say.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
have therapeutic. Yes.
hmm
Yeah.
it's either you're on the splitter or on the chainsaw, or even with your axe, just splitting for
Yep.
however long your body can handle it. But you're with each one of those, you have to be in the zone.
Exactly.
I mean, yes. In your head, you could be thinking about everything else, but you have to be focused on what you're doing. But in
Exactly.
doing so, it's therapeutic mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, you can look at how much wood that you bucked, or how much wood you split, or just look at with your axe, like I split this pile by myself, but with my hand, and that's
Yeah.
enjoyable mentally. Like I did that, and look back at it at nighttime when you're having a cold, fresh or a cold one, and say, I feel good about that.
Yep.
I
Exactly.
agree.
And we do. I do have a small. I guess you'd call it a small parlor stove in our dining room. So probably 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to buy one of those and put it in because I was dealing with firewood equipment every day, and it's like,
Hmm.
why aren't we burning firewood? So we put that in, and admittedly, that was a process because I wanted everything up to code and doing the chimney right and all that, you know. But that is very rewarding, and like on the cold days, you know, basically the dining room, the kitchen will be really warm. I mean, like 75, 78 degrees, you know. The rest of the
Hmm.
house is a little bit cooler, which is fine. I like sleeping in the cool, but when you are outside on a cold, snowy, rainy day, you're doing the snow blowing, you're, you know, just doing anything outside, and you come back in, and that wood heat is just different. It's different than forced air furnace, you know, like it's just a it takes the chill right off you, right? And it's relaxing. It's got a glass door on it. You can watch the fire, and it's just, yeah. I really love having that. Um, and the kids help with stacking the firewood. I don't have enough at home yet. I think we usually burn about 2 full cord. So right now I think I've got about a cord and a half maybe. So I got to bring a little bit more home yet, source that yet. But otherwise it's like that's rewarding also. And yes, it's more work. You got to carry the wood into the house every night. You know, you spill stuff, you got to sweep, you do all that. But to me, like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a good thing.
And to look at the wood stove or fireplace and say, I'm my house and my family are warm because of my hard work, or my
Right?
family and I together
Yeah.
work together to produce this heat, and now we are warm, safe, and cozy in
Mhm.
home, type thing. That I feel I'm more liberal to use, or sorry, I'm I burn wood more liberally when I split it myself, versus if I had to pay
Yes,
for cord, I would kind of be
exactly.
stingy. Like, I don't want to put that one more stick in because I had to pay.
Yeah.
Like it's a
The
weird
dollar each
dynamic,
time. Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, and I agree with you. I said before, wood heat is a different heat. It will permeate into the furniture, into the walls,
Yep.
where even if your fire goes out at like midnight, your house is still cozy until to the morning time. You're not waking
Yep.
up to a chilly
Yeah.
house, where the
Exactly.
other type of heat, it won't radiate into everything and into the house.
Right.
You can't beat it. Period.
Right.
Bar none. The bar none.
Yeah.
But I want to segue maybe back to the industry.
Okay.
I think I think you were with Wolfe Ridge when your first dealer was appointed to the West Coast. Is that,
Yes.
or were you with them then?
Yes. Ben was working on getting that set up, I think about the same time I had started. So I was there when their first shipments were going out. Um, and that's been big for us because getting one unit out to the West Coast, like if we were to ship one machine like to you, you're probably looking at like $3,000. And I'm not sure exactly what the rates ended up being, but when we ship a whole semi out to CNM there, um, they'll divvy it up. So let's say that the whole semi is $6,000 or something, but there's 10 pieces on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm misspeaking, I'm sure, but figure that maybe it's around $1,000 to move a unit or something instead of three. So it makes a huge difference. And then being able to see the stuff at the dealer also. Most of the time, the dealers have stock level. Right now, things have been moving pretty fast. So some of the dealers are out, and we've got dealer shipments leaving in the next. Well, one left today. I think there's more leaving in the next few days too. But yeah, then that saves a lot for the customer, because even if it's one that's, say, like out on the East Coast too, it's similar. It might be $1,000 to ship it, but then at the dealer it's 400 or 500. So
Mm-hmm.
um, the dealer network's been a big deal for us. It's been very good.
When I talked to Andrew, I think he quoted me offhand. I think it would be like $5,000 just in shipping costs. Obviously, that's in Perth, which is further east
Sure.
than
Right.
where you are. But yeah, like even that is just so that was before his flat rate was in place. But
Sure.
um was and maybe you can speak to this or not. But in terms of the specific location
Hmm.
of the dealer in Oregon, was
Yeah.
that strategic, or was that just like, oh, this guy wants to partner with us, let's do that?
I'm not sure how it all panned out. Yes, it is strategic because we had been wanting somebody. We Before I was there, they had been wanting somebody on the West Coast for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think Ben ended up reaching out to them, and they worked out a deal. Usually, like, the opening order for dealers ends up being 5 machines, so it's not huge, but it is huge in a sense, right? Like, that the dealer that's buying the stuff isn't just like, okay, it's going to be me and a buddy buying 2 machines, and then we get the discount, and then we're done, right?
Yeah,
That they're going to have some vested interest in the stuff. And we were looking, they were looking for the West Coast, and then furthermore than that, trying to get somebody like in the Texas area. And we did just get a new dealer in Texas. It's not set up yet, but that one is going to be announced, I would say, probably in the next 2 weeks. Um, so
right
that's
on.
that's really, really a big deal. And I think right now on the dealer network side of things, we're in a good spot. Um, there is potential to have someone maybe in like Wyoming or Idaho or something like that. But other than that, I think that I think that we're pretty well represented in the states now.
Right
So
on.
yeah.
Yeah, from what I can, maybe I'm wrong, but last time I checked, because the dealer is in Lower Oregon,
Yep.
and if it's basically more or less in the middle of the coast
Yeah.
of my side. So in
Right.
theory, someone coming from San Diego, for example, could
Hmm.
travel up to Southern Oregon versus someone in my area or Buck and Billy Ray in BC could come down south and
Right.
kind of meet in the middle where
Yeah.
that location is. I forget what the name of the town is, but
Gold Beach.
um, there we go. Yeah.
Gold Beach, Oregon.
So
Yeah.
and I feel that that was strategic and maybe the happenstance in terms of its location versus further south into the West Coast,
Right.
maybe up towards me, would it's kind of meet in the middle type thing. If you're living on my coast, yeah, I
Yeah.
wish that we had more dealers out here. It would make sense being like a logging community known
Right.
for trees, Evergreen State, Washington, but we don't have a lot here, which I find interesting yet odd at the same time. But very very happy to have Wolfe Ridge on this
Yeah.
coast. And I reached out to with the Chris Cole, what's his name?
Yeah. Chris Coleman. Yep.
There we go. Yeah, I reached out to him a few times, and very receptive, very responsive.
Yeah. Good.
And yeah, it's cool to have that be in proximity. So I
Yeah.
think that I think the fellowship is gonna go down to Eugene in February for, I
Okay.
think there's a locking show there.
There is. Yeah.
Um, so I think that's the equivalent of our Bunyan on this
Yeah.
coast, I would
It
say.
is.
So I think that we're gonna be going there in early 25. So hopefully the Wolf Ridge will be there too.
Yeah, there's
The,
potential. I think that I can't speak for sure yet, but I know that they were CNN was exploring that, and then if they go, we'll end up going out to support them too. So there's
right
potential
on.
if they go to do that, that I'll be there at that show then too. So I'll make sure to keep in contact with you. And I know when we made the announcements for that new dealer, it was pretty cool to see your excitement about it. So thank you for that. I know you mentioned it. You mentioned it in a couple videos, and I see you on social media, and we appreciate the support. So
Yeah, man, for sure. It's like I said, it's cool to have um a a a name brand this so close, where most of it is in the Midwest or
yeah,
the
it's all
just on
Northeast.
that side
Yeah,
of the U.S.
yeah,
Canada.
yeah,
We don't
yep,
have anything here, which
yeah,
I would again, it's odd. I would
yeah,
love to partner with someone to create another processor company to be competitive with you, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't know even how to start. But I mean, having something in the Northwest would make sense. But
sure,
anyway,
yeah,
cool. So you have your own YouTube channel, right? Right, Bob?
yes, I do.
Do you and I'm sorry, I keep forgetting the name of your channel. I wanted to look at it again, but then I can't remember the name of it. What is the name
Okay,
of it again?
it's called Back to Bob.
That's what it is. Yes. Sorry
Yeah,
about that, Bob.
yeah, no,
Back
that's
to Bob.
okay.
Yes.
It's okay. But the idea was
um.
to get back to like the hobbies and interests and things like that I had. That was the premise for the name. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I've got like 750 subscribers, so it's kind of cool to have seen that grow. And um, I was just looking at it to have some fun, and if there was some repair or something like that I was doing, I have some random videos on there that have helped a few people. It's kind of cool to see, like this rear defroster repair. Every once in a while, somebody will comment on it and be like, "Hey, this really helped," and it doesn't really benefit me any, but it was kind of fun to show that. And I've searched, obviously, YouTube certified mechanic, right? No, when something goes wrong, you can search like, hey, has someone else had this problem before? And
Hmm.
so having that, having experienced that before, where I find stuff that's helpful, if I had a way to do that, I was like, pay it forward. So that's why I've done a few of those videos that way. And then I wanted to start and document the firewood deal. So I did part one and then I left. But we'll come back for part two.
Right on. Well, I'm sure. I mean, like you're busy with YouTube for Wolfe Ridge, so to
Right.
have your own channel to do your own stuff,
Yeah.
and again, being a dad and a husband, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's time, right? Time is
Right.
always a factor for
Time
everything. So,
management. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It's a big thing.
yeah, I hear you. Well, I hope that people will subscribe to your channel too,
Yeah. Thanks for the mention.
tune in, for sure. I feel that on YouTube they're kind of like Firewood. Most of us are a community and support each other. I like to support smaller channels
Yeah.
too, to kind of plug them, um, and not because people who watch my channel can watch your channel, and that's fine. It's not like they're gonna not watch yours or someone
Right.
else's. I mean,
Yeah.
we can all
Exactly.
watch other channels, so there's no competition there because they. Anyway, I'll stop there. I want to segue again, Bob.
Yeah.
Let's with Wolfe Ridge, if I may ask, and you can say no.
Mhm.
Um, how much uh take how much do you take into consideration feedback from customers, of your products or ideas, some random thing that you got an email from some guy in Indiana saying, hey,
Sure.
you should make this product, this would make my life easier, and you look at it, is there do you give that any importance, or
Yes.
kind of, or is it's like, now you don't know what you're talking about, I don't want to make that.
Yeah. We do get those emails from time to time, and also we get obviously feedback at the trade shows. The overwhelming majority of the feedback we get at trade shows is positive. There's a lot of current users that have machines, but sometimes they'll point something out that we may have not said or not thought of in the design process, right? Um,
Mhm.
the vertical splitters when they came out, and those are coming out. I think, well, I think the second machine was getting shipped when I started um, at Wolfe Ridge, and one of the cool things for me to see was when those machines came out. Um, as they were manufacturing them and getting more and more done, they were refining the process and being like, okay, let's change this, let's do this a little bit differently. And as time goes on, that everything, it makes it better for the customer. um there were a few added things, and I know that there has been, like, this year we did the express wrapper. There were people asking about something economical like that, and that was well received. The disc cleaner was in the works before I started, but that's a huge piece, and that was well received too. The splitters themselves, I know that there's been a lot of customer feedback over the years that Chris and Kevin have taken into consideration, and to make things better and easier for people to use. Um, this year we have in for 25, we got a couple of cool things in the works. We are not building a processor, so there seems to be this continuous thing that we're building a processor. Maybe at some point, but uh, the factory is very busy as it is, and then also we have a space constraint where if we try to build processors now, like we have to add another section on the building, which is possible. Um,
Mhm.
but but it's going to be one of those things where if we do it, we want to do it right, and it's going to take some time to do that. So the disc cleaner was a big project. We got that done. We took the prototype to Paul Bunyan, non-painted. We got a lot of feedback there as well, and we had somebody that wanted to buy that. Actually, two people that wanted to buy that machine unpainted at the show. We ended up selling it to one of them, and we told him what the revisions were going to be on the production model. And so our production model is going to, I think the second unit is going to start going through the factory pretty soon here, and have a few small changes to it. And then we'll go again with it. And I think, like, the vertical splitter prototypes were at Paul Bunyan, and I don't think the intent was to sell them there, because there was still work that needed to be done. But there were a couple of people that really wanted them, so they sold them at the show in 23. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's we do get emails sometimes that are kind of like really really crazy, like, we need to build, I don't know, I can't even give you an example, but you can imagine where it would
Mhm.
be kind of like a one-off thing. And there may have been a time where this was more of a fab shop, metal shop, or whatever, where one-off projects were fine. But now, it's a production factory facility. So when we take into consideration something that is, going to be a new product or whatever, we have to try to figure out, all right, is the market interested in this? We listen to all the feedback that we had at the shows where they're saying, hey, I want this, I want to see this, so on and so forth. So,
Mhm.
if we're not getting that, then it's kind of like, well, we gotta we gotta think of the whole picture here. And then figuring out, Kevin does the engineering, and figure out how to utilize all of the technology that we have in the factory to make the product, let's say, make it high quality, but make it also be able to get through the factory quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, again, a long answer again. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. I
So
gotcha. Right on. I thought of a question, not to follow up, but when you're, how do you pick the colors of each machine? Is it like I pick it from a hat, or is it assigned based on model? I'm
so
curious.
every machine, when we talk about splitters, let's say horizontal and vertical splitters as an example.
Hmm.
Those have four standard colors you can pick from, and everything is built to order. So we're not in a position yet where we've built stuff for stock. So basically, anything that is going through the factory has been ordered by either a customer or a dealer. So at the time of the order, then they're picking the colors. And then if they want to do custom color, right now on those verticals and horizontals, it adds $250. So they can say, hey, I want this RAL. We have bright yellow, luminous yellow, come through, and then that's the color they get. The skid steer stuff, I'm not sure, for whatever reason, was always yellow, the skid steer splitters. And so the skid steer splitters are yellow. I think that black or our standard colors add $100 to that. And the reason that we kept those as yellow is because that's an item that we could build for stock, right? So there's not much customization to it. There's not like where you could take a say you could take a compact commercial, add 30-inch stroke to it, add this, add that, and then if we make it red,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's going to be, well, I wanted the blue one that's 24-inch stroke instead of 30. So the skid steer splitters, if we get into a position where we have the time to build some extra stuff, then we can build those extra, put them on the shelf, and then that way when the customer is ready, we've got them. And then all of the skid steer attachments, like the grapple buckets, the firewood buckets, and that stuff, those are all just black. Disc cleaner, there was talk of doing it two-tone, but I'm not sure yet how that, I'm not sure yet what the color section is going to be on that yet. So
I'm just curious. Hold
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Thank you. And
Mhm.
it's good that to hear that you're you're okay with to absorb feedback from customers and to field
Absolutely.
ideas. But yes, at the end of the day, you may be able either to alter that product or to make a new one, and then if that's feasible, to make in large quantities and then get them out the
Yeah,
door, as opposed to having to spend more time on this one thing that may or may not sell or may not fly off the shelf. I mean, you can't.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it may be, oh, we want this, and then you say, well, this is what the price is going to be if we want to do that, and they, well, that's, that's way too much, and so then you end up with all that. And I think no matter what you build, there's going to be some people that aren't happy with one specific aspect of it, where one guy will have one gripe about it, but one guy is perfect for, and the next guy, there's one other little thing that he wants to change. So you have to take all of that into consideration when you're building something, because you can't, there's no way to make it perfect for every person, right? It's that everybody has to have a concession of some sort. I mean, like, my truck, I don't like some certain noises it makes, right? Like, but it's that's just part of the deal. There's a lot of stuff I do like about it. So
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Um. Yeah. It's. I think that for a few of us, the perfect splitter is out there, but I think for most of us, it's going to be. I like most of what this does, and I'm
yeah.
content with it.
Mhm.
And what I really want is just not possible, or no one's making it, or it's just in my mind it works, but on the ground in front of me doesn't work type thing. So I
Right.
gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Randomly, I had a thought, and I messaged Andrew about this. I'm curious if you have any insight on a vertical splitter.
Mhm.
You usually have a single wedge.
Yep.
Why couldn't you put a four-way wedge on a vertical splitter?
So you could. Um, the the consensus that we have is that there'd be a lot more inherent danger, because as it goes down right now, it splits left and right, and it goes to the side of you. I have seen other manufacturers that had like some bigger vertical splitters that had basically like a guillotine and then two more wedges off of it, but the operator's position was much further away. So if something did happen, the operator wasn't so close to that. So I think it adds, to me, it adds too much more risk and or danger. And at that point, then you would have to upgrade the tonnage, which means a slower cycle time, which means bigger cylinder, probably bigger pump, bigger engine, more money, slower cycle time. So it kind of keeps going. And the thing with the vertical, or I suppose any two-way splitter for that reason, or for that matter, is that you have very little chaff and debris because you're just a single wedge, you're busting it in half each time. And with the vertical, when you're looking, you're looking straight down. It's like a target crosshair in front of you, So 1, 2, 3. What I've done to be faster on the vertical is do a split, 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 and then turn the log and split, split, split. Then you get
Mm-hmm.
your whatever it is, 9, 12 pieces out of it, 16 even, without having to go full stroke on it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't. You won't see a four-way coming from us. I know that, because there's already been those conversations, where and that's a good example of an idea that we've had people email about, saying, or comments, like, hey, you should have multi-way on this. And in theory, yes, but I would rather have like a huge fence around it then, so that, because stuff will pop. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's popping left or right, like I said, that's not, it's going away from you. But if it's popping towards you, that gives a lot more potential for injury. So
I agree. I had an idea, and I messaged Andrew, and he said basically safety, what you just said, but
Yep.
safety more so for fingers. So your
Yeah.
fingers on the side of the round,
Yeah.
and then if the fairway is coming down, like where do you put your hands?
Yeah.
But you had an interesting point of having it pop, which I agree as well. So I understand that it's good that it's on the radar, but just it's safety wise, not going to do it, not going to produce it. Other people can make it for their machines or add it on later,
Yep.
but you're not going to produce it, and that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
think that maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it's Joe over at Ohio Woodburner who has perfected the split turn to the split, so then you just toss it on your conveyor and
Yep.
go.
Yep.
And that's the way to do it. I agree.
Yeah.
And people understand that you don't need to have the ram go all the way into the wood. Just go in
Right.
part way until it pops, and then it's split. It's cut. You're done. Then
Yeah.
you move on. You don't have to go all the way in and all the way out.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Sometimes,
I
yeah, if
agree.
it's really stringy, you have to, but otherwise,
Yeah.
most of the time it'll pop apart and you're good to go.
Elm or something with a knot, they have to go all the way through. Yes, but with most species, then just little pop,
Right.
and then you're done.
Yeah. Especially if it's dry
Rock.
too.
Oh yeah, I agree. So let me give you the floor, Bob. Is there anything that you would like to share with the viewers? Insight, pro tips, updates, anything lacking on YouTube, or anything that you would like to share? Go
Um,
ahead.
yeah, actually, I want to say thank you. And I think I want to say thank you from all of us at Wolfe Ridge. We have had an amazing year, and the support that I have had personally and our company has had from the community, um, on social media, at the trade shows, at the dealerships, our customers, everybody, like, it really is like a big family. And I am genuinely thankful, and I know that everybody at the factory is as well. So that is my most important point to convey is thankfulness.
Right on. Yeah, I think a lot of us either have a Wolfe Ridge, see you on YouTube, want a Wolfe Ridge, and knows that it's a good machine, and Chris Wolfe makes a good product, and won't put his name behind it if it's
Exactly.
not going to be a quality thing. And the Wolfe Ridge will work with you if part is broken, you have a mishap, or things you want to change, to work with you to get you that part, or to send you information on a part that would be good for your situation.
Yeah.
Which is good to be with the company, or to have a company that's willing to do that with you, and
Yeah.
for you. So yeah, we support you. I ran my first Wolfe Ridge during the fellowship a few Saturdays ago,
Oh, nice.
and it was a different experience. It was an older gen, I think a first or second gen.
Okay.
It was Daniel Atkins, a
Okay.
machine, and
Okay.
he has had the log lift on the other side, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely a lot different than my slow champion slitter.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I had to make sure that my fingers were not going to be in the way, but it was definitely a cool experience to run one, and
Cool.
with all the knobs. Yeah, pretty cool.
That's
Pretty
good
cool
to hear.
stuff,
Thanks.
for
Yeah.
sure. All right, Bob. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me for a bit. I know you're a busy man. I hope that everyone enjoyed this conversation. If you have any questions for Bob, leave them down in the comments. I'm sure that he'll read them and answer them. But yeah, thank you, Bob, for your time. I appreciate it. Go ahead and say goodbye.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Travis. Appreciate the opportunity, and thanks again to everybody for the support. It's been a wild ride so far, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Rock and roll. Team Wolfe Ridge. I
All
dig
right.
it. All right, folks.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being on and watching Bob and I chat for a second. If you want to be on the podcast, let me know. Until next time, I appreciate it. Keep cutting. Cheers.